I guess what would help unpack this is if you start from square one essentially and explain the reasons for what has led you here, because that would give a lot of context, I think. Give me the timeline from 2 years ago until now. How have you come to your current situation?
Yeah, sure. So, I would actually start from around 3 years ago, if that's cool.
Sure. Sure.
So about 3 years ago, I was in a very dark place. I had lost my faith at the time, and I was in a basically a really horrible situation at home. I have even from the beginning of my life, I've had very rough a very rough home situation. I don't want to like trigger people, so I guess like
Sure.
trigger warning with abuse. But my dad was physically abusive and mentally abusive for sure. It was not good. And then my mother was essentially absent because she was either working or drunk at home. And then I also have a Down syndrome sister who needs like help with things.
Right.
She can't take care of herself 100%. So I have to be there for her as well. And then my brother, uh, around 4 years ago, 5 years ago, went off to college. And so I was alone at home, essentially having to be the man of the house because my dad, well, actually, sorry, I forgot to mention my dad now works out of the house a lot of the time. It's essentially become I am taking care of myself, my work, my friends, my mom, and my sister. And so, obviously, as you might imagine, this was quite a dark place to be in. So it was very rough for me for a while there. But the saying is your focus determines your reality, right? So I instead of focusing on the oh man, my life is horrible, everything is going wrong, instead of focusing on the negative, I decided to focus on the positive. I decided to focus on okay, what do I have? And this helped me realize that I was neglecting my friends and I was neglecting like a lot of my things, like my health, my mental health, my physical health, my emotional health. I was neglecting a lot of things that would actually help me get out of the situation I was in because it just wasn't on my mind. So I shifted my focus to, okay, how can I get out of this situation? And as I said, my faith was dying at the time, so I started going to church again with my best friend William. And since then, my spirituality has healed a lot, and I'm in a really good place with God at the moment. My friends, I started hanging out with them a lot more and making sure they were doing well. One of the things that helps me feel better is taking care of others, and so helping my friends through things was actually helping myself. And then I was like, well, I also have my brother. And so I started hanging out with my brother Daniel. And then, my sister Nellie and, my mom, rekindling those relationships, making sure those were doing well and loving them well. And it's turned my life completely around to the point now where I'm doing great spiritually. I have a fantastic friend group. I have a family that supports me and loves me because I was there to support and love them. Yeah, now I get to pursue my passion of content creation.
Well, that's fantastic that you're able to say that, because a lot of people who are in dark situations like that don't make it out, or they never
Right.
have that moment of clarity and they turn their life around. And a lot of the time, people who come out of these kind of situations can mark a certain moment or an inflection point at which they realized I need to figure something out so that this does not become my entire life. So would you say that you had a moment where you're like, enough is enough and I need to fix this?
I actually had a couple moments of that. Let me go back. Let me take you back to around 10 years ago. I guess again, trigger warning for suicide. I don't want to get you in trouble. Should I not mention this? I don't want to like get you and your podcast in trouble.
No, you can mention whatever you want, and I'll figure out what to keep in and what not.
Oh, perfect, perfect. Okay, okay. So I would say around 10 years ago, my girlfriend at the time had left me. My obviously I was still in the same situation with my father being abusive and my mother being absent and my sister needing help and my brother being, gone essentially. So I was at a really, really low point, and I basically decided that my life wasn't worth living anymore because there was no light in my life, was the way I would have put it then. And so without getting into too much detail, I attempted and I pulled the trigger, but I had actually loaded the gun wrong. And the magazine wasn't in all the way, so nothing happened. And I just started crying. I was just in this like deep despair, and I looked up, and it sounds like it's out of a movie, but there on my bookshelf across the room was my Bible. And I was like, okay, maybe I should go pick up the Bible. And so I went to pick up the Bible, and I opened it up to Lamentations, which is, if you don't know, it's essentially the book of the Bible that deals with the fall of Babylon and how all of these people were like being murdered and burned, and just, it was horrible. It was really, really bad. And they deal with a lot of depressing like thoughts during Lamentations. But right in the middle of Lamentations, there's a verse. It's actually like perfectly in the middle. And it says, but the Lord, praise be the Lord that I don't have to lose my faith because he is with me. Right. Essentially, I'm kind of messing up the quote, but that is essentially the idea. And I was like, even in all this sadness, even in the fall of Babylon, these people made it out, and so I can too. And so I started turning my life around there, I guess I would say. Does that kind of answer your question, where I had like a moment of
Sure.
turnaround? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. I know a lot of veterans. I've listened to a lot of veteran stories and how they come back from war and they just cannot take the trauma that they had been experiencing. And maybe there was a time or two where their life was almost ended by themselves, and they just, for whatever reason, like in your situation, thankfully, it didn't work. And they realized that maybe I should share my story so that other people who are going through the same thing hear it, and they can understand that there's more to life than they might realize. And I think that it sounds like you had a moment like that where, whether you're religious or not, I felt like there was some sort of intervention saying, you know what, hold on, you've got more in you, more fight. And thankfully, you're here with us today, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
After that moment, what were some of the things that you started to address in your life? Like you said, relationships, you started to mend.
Yeah. So that story takes place around 10 years ago. But I had another similar moment around 3 years ago. It wasn't an attempt or anything like that, but I was in a really dark place. And I started to turn my life around, where I was like, okay, what can I actually do with my life? I feel like I've only been consuming things. I've only been taking things in, but I haven't been giving anything back to the world. And so I was like, okay, well, I have a very fun personality, which somehow survived my childhood. And I have my faith. And I was like, okay, well, what can I do with these two things? And it was like, well, what if I got into content creation? I've always loved watching YouTube. I've always loved I watched, PewDiePie, Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, I always loved watching YouTube growing up. And I was like, okay, well, what if I got into that? I have the editing skills because I used to do like projects for school and stuff. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to start giving back. And actually, by starting my YouTube channel, I gained a lot because it gave me a purpose. I also started gaining a lot because I started communicating with friends that I had lost touch with. And my brother and I became very close. And I guess I feel blessed because things just started going well for me. And I feel like it's because, obviously it's not all because of me, but a lot of that was shifting my focus to what can I do? Instead of wallowing in the despair, what can I do?
Would you say that in a way, YouTube, save is a strong word, but would you say that YouTube saved you in that it gave you a purpose? Because I think what so many people are missing in their life is purpose and is a reason to get up in the morning.
As a Christian, I would say that Jesus saved me.
Right.
But I hear what you're saying, in the sense that like purpose, if you can find a purpose for your existence, that will give you drive. That will give you a reason to continue. I would say that YouTube was definitely a big one for me. But it could be anything for anyone. It could be, my purpose is to help out at local service centers, or my purpose is to, even as simple as my purpose is to serve fast food, or,
Right.
as long as you're doing something, you have a purpose. If you listeners are in a similar situation that I was in, where you feel like you just have nothing going for you and you have nothing that you're doing, try finding something that you enjoy doing and do it.
Yeah.
That would be my encouragement.
Yeah, because I say that a lot in my videos, where a very strong motivator for doing anything in life is having some form of responsibility. And if you have a job as simple as you said as just working in a fast food restaurant, there are people that expect you to show up to that, and there are people that expect to be served food. And so even though it seems menial, you have something that if you don't show up, then there are consequences. And even if those consequences seem trivial, they're still there. And like with this channel, and I'm sure you agree since you also make videos, when you have people that comment every single time like, hey man, can't wait for the next video, or I'm really excited to see where the channel goes, there's now an expectation like, oh, okay, people are coming to me and they want to see something from me, so I have to go out there and do it. And it might be a burden, but I think it's a really good way to keep yourself on track. And for me, financial reasons are a big one. Like for you, where you say you take care of your sister and the rest of your family, like I'm sure that gives you a ton of purpose and responsibility, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and so many people don't have that in their life, which I think is why, there's no way to sugarcoat or give one answer to it, but I think it's a big reason why so many people have so much anxiety and they don't know what they want to do with their life because they have nothing important to do. They're just like a cog in the wheel, or they're not getting any sort of positive affirmations from people that they're doing a good job,
Right.
And content is so perfect for that, because you get the comments and you get the likes and you get people telling you, I love what you're doing, please make more. Now that's so motivating.
Right. Yeah, it's such a blessing to hear back from the audience, even when it's like, I have to work, but it's like, I want to work because I feel called to, but also people are actually enjoying my content, and I'm sure you get this a lot because your content is fantastic. So like, you're sitting there and you're like, man, these comments are great. Man, yeah. I want to get more of these.
Of all of the things that are going well for you right now, what would you attribute the most to your overall happiness and success? Would you say it's your faith?
Absolutely, I would. Yeah. Without a doubt. Yeah.
And what led you to heal your faith, as you said? What was the way that you did that?
Well, honestly, I would say that I had very little to do with it. I guess just the willingness to show up, because what essentially happened was my best friend William was like, hey, I go to church. Would you want to come to church with me?
I see.
So someone else reaching out to me was what pulled me back to the faith, I guess you could say. So I guess, I'm blessed to have had that call.
So it's community then, in a way. Someone else coming to you, or someone maybe pulling you out of the dark hole that you find yourself in, is what helps a lot of the time.
Yeah, for sure.
When it's just you doing something and you have no one to hold you accountable for, then it's really easy to just stick or stay where you know best, Like, Would you say that if William hadn't come to you, that you would have as easily come out of your situation?
Man, I don't know. That's a difficult question.
Right.
I would hope so. But honestly, at the time, I felt just so lost, and I felt like there was nothing for me, like I said. So I guess if I had somehow come out of it apart from William, it would have taken a lot longer, and it probably would have been much more difficult.
Right. I don't know though, because so many people will hear that and they'll be like, well, I have no one, and I have no friends. Right. I have no community to turn to or lean on, But if I had nothing, I honestly think the best place to start would be the internet. And I say it in every single video, I swear, but there is so much to gain from being a creator and putting something out there and hearing back from it, because a lot of the time you only have your local circle, if you have one at all, like your friends and family, and they might not understand your situation or your interests or what you want to do with your life or what have you. But the internet is a seemingly infinite pool of people to talk to, and there's no possible way you could ever extinguish that potential in terms of like running out of people to talk to, right?
Right.
And so if you keep making videos and just keep putting out stuff, keep trying new things, trying to do something that you find meaningful of value, that might honestly get you out of the situation that you find yourself in, or at least help. Because like you said, content gave you kind of like a distraction, and a good distraction at that. Like it's something to put your time and energy into, where you don't have to think about maybe your home life right now. I just want to do something that I love, which is content, and that gives you a purpose, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So in that regard, would you recommend others also try to become creators?
Oh, absolutely. If you listening have a creative mind, find some way to express that to the world. Gosh, it's such a gift to want to create, or excuse me, to have the ability to create. Like that's such a blessing. Don't keep that from us. We, like us, other people in the world, we want that from you. Don't keep that from us. Or
Right.
even if it's just for yourself. Like if you're an artist, let's say, like sorry, not an album artist. Let's say you're a painter and you just love to paint. Then paint. Man, make something, that is it's such a blessing to be able to do that. Don't restrict your creativity.
I 100% agree. And I hope that more people start to do that, because even as a hobby, it's just a great thing to do. I think a lot of people are like, well, I got to make a whole channel and a brand and make money and make it my career. Like, no, you don't. Just do it for fun, man.
Exactly.
Be a weekend creator, if that's what you want to call it, Like I would always think about what I would be doing with my time if I only had my job. And I work from home, and it's a very easy, boring office job. So I could never imagine my afternoons and evenings being spent doing nothing. Like I've got to go do something, right? I've been extremely busy with the channel as of late, but it's just a great way to fill your time if you need a way to fill your time. Because if you're in a dark situation, the last thing that's going to help you get out of the situation is nothing to distract yourself from it. Like you got to have some sort of outlet. I can't speak to that because I've never been in a situation like that, but I imagine you would agree that having something that turns your attention away from the thing that's weighing you down is a big blessing.
It's not even necessarily only a distraction. It definitely is that. Shifting your focus to something that you enjoy is for sure healthy a lot of the times.
Yeah.
But it's also productive.
Right.
Which is a fantastic side effect.
Yeah, you can make some money too.
Yeah, yeah, financially productive for sure. Yeah, but even if it isn't, like I love looking at art online. Like just even if it's only fan art, or even if it's like something someone drew on a sketch pad, it's like, man, I love that someone has created something. That is so cool that they're producing something in their life. I love that, bringing something of themselves into the world. I love that.
I really appreciate you sharing your story. I'm sure that not everyone has the courage to do that, and I really appreciate you.
Hey, I appreciate you too, man. I love your content. I mean, I don't really know you, so to speak, but I love you, man. I love you. I hope you're doing well. I'm really glad that you're doing something, creative in your life. I'm glad you feel called to that, and I just want to encourage you in that.
Thank you, Derek. I appreciate it. All right, man. Well, I'll catch you later.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.